It's Lucy Litch, and this is Tiny House Conversations. It's the Australian-based podcast where I interview experienced tiny houses, tiny builders, and adventurers in the tiny world so you can discover how to create, build, and transition into tiny life. Before we get into the show, I'd love to know, is there a particular topic you'd like to learn more about, or a guest in the tiny house world that you'd love me to get on the podcast? Maybe you know of a tiny houser with an interesting story, or a tiny builder who builds amazing tiny homes and offers a professional, ethical, and reliable service. Or maybe you know of other experts or adventurers in the tiny house space who have a message that needs to be heard. Whatever the case, I'd love to hear from you, and you can head over to tinyhouseconversations.com/request. If you enter your guest or topic request there, I'll do what I can to make it happen for you. Thanks so much. Now let's intro today's episode. Hey, it's Lucy and welcome back to Tiny House Conversations. Today I'm speaking with Cris Edwards and Bryh Joy, who are interior designers based in Tweed Heads in New South Wales and are DIY building a tiny home without any building experience. Cris and Bryh see and feel the housing affordability crisis and want to be part of the revolution. This first tiny home is built on spec and they are filming and sharing the entire journey. As two renters who are terrified of having to move again and unable to afford to buy, they can see that their future is in a tiny home. They're determined to build the most beautiful tiny home in Australia from the perspective of women and are confident someone will want it for their home, Airbnb, or vacation house. They have no idea what they're doing, but are excited to be part of this community and learn along the way, sharing their ups and downs as they go. And in this conversation, we talk all about their DIY tiny house building project, the multi-purpose mission behind building their tiny home, women in building and lady tradies. We also talked about some of the main features they'll be including in their tiny house, some of the challenges they've experienced during this project, and lots more. This was such a fun conversation, and you'll notice that throughout the episode there are many laughs. Bryh and Cris are so playful and friendly and fun and silly, and they bring lightness to every situation, it feels like. And you can't help but smile or laugh as you hear their story, and they're such an inspiration, and I can't wait for you to hear it. So, on to the show with Bryh and Cris. Cris and Bryh, welcome to Tiny House Conversations, and thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Hey, we're stoked to be here.
So happy to have you here. And both of you are interior designers, you're single mums and your best friends. And I'd love if you're able to share a bit about your backgrounds and what sparked your interest in tiny houses, and then what it also inspired you on this exciting DIY building project of a tiny house together.
Bryh and I met a few years ago. And Bryh was really interested in interior design, and she was going through a bit of a difficult period in her life, which we can talk about later, but we'll do the short version. So I offered to mentor her, and she used to come around a couple days a week. And then I was like, geez, she's actually pretty good. She's like a really good designer. And then it's like 2 days turned into 3 days. And then pretty soon we were like sister wives, or as we like to say, non-sexual life partners.
Yeah, well, pretty soon it kind of switched from Cris helping me to then me helping Cris in an assistant way, and then it just evolved. And then suddenly we're like collaborating with other business ideas, and so it went from her helping me to me helping her to then working together.
Partners, yeah, and having a shitload of fun while we're doing it. So
we struggle with actually switching off from work. We're always talking about work stuff in personal hours and vice versa.
But it's not a bad thing. We're genuinely excited. So we, as you know, being interior designers, and I've done it now for 25 years, it's a wonderful career. I love it. Bryh loves it. But everything we design is for other people. We're taking their dreams and their ideas and making them a reality. And I have had so many ideas that I haven't been able to express because I just haven't had the right client. So we kind of had the same fantasy that I think so many people have, which is like, oh, let's do a fixer upper. Let's buy a house and renovate it. We're going to do better than anybody else. We're going to kill it. And we thought maybe if we pool our resources and maybe borrow from every single person we know, we can do that. And then, oh my gosh, the property prices in the last 2 years, insane, right?
Yeah.
So that just completely went out the window. So then I was like, what little thing could we renovate? So I thought, oh, maybe we can renovate a caravan. So I started looking into it, and I thought, and I was kind of excited, but I could see a lot of people were doing a pretty good job at it. And then a friend of ours, he's like, nah, you need to build a tiny home.
Yep.
And I'm like, what's a tiny home?
Yep, that's when I thought she was talking about doll houses. I didn't know what she was banging on about with tiny homes.
So we started doing research, and I thought, wow, let's not renovate anything. Let's build something from scratch.
Yeah.
And then, so the kernel of the idea was really probably about like our egos and design and wanting to just do something ourselves.
That was ours. We were picking our like furniture and finishes for us, not for somebody else.
Yeah. And but then we kind of like, as we like sort of took a deep dive into the tiny home community world, we're like started realizing that this wasn't just like a money-making venture. We were actually quite passionate about what it does, what it represents, the problems it solves for people, and that like maybe we could take this in the direction, like not only a design direction, but like a new career direction and possibly a philanthropic direction, like that we are like part of the revolution in like solving like the housing affordability problem, you know? So we just thought like this is aligning on so many levels.
Absolutely. And, you know, with this housing affordability, it affects every single one of us. And so the tiny house movement and the tiny house lifestyle is something that a lot of people are considering. And I think it's so cool to have this marriage between the interior design and the tiny house building. And I'd love to know, what's the bigger picture for you? Because you're beginning this journey of DIY building a tiny home for yourself. What's the bigger picture for that? What are you hoping to create beyond that? Where's the first tiny home going to go?
Okay, so this is the $1 million question. We're kind of like, it's not that we don't have the end in mind, it's that we have a number of happy endings.
Yeah, it's like a tree with all these branches. We're not quite sure which branch it's going to go off onto. Which
isn't for lack of organization on our part, but we're just not sure what's going to happen. So let's talk about what we're doing. So we both have, we're both single moms, and we're not ready to live in a tiny home because we each have 2 kids and a dog. So
2 teenagers.
2 teenagers. Yeah. So, and people do that and good on them, but we're not ready. We see that in our future. So the first thing was like, let's build it on spec. The same way a builder would build a house and not for a client, but just on spec and then sell it like you would a house that you were flipping. We're doing that, but with a tiny house, you know, and I don't think we know anyone who's doing that. Mostly you get builders that are building it for people, but we're building it for an imaginary client. And then we want to build. So the original idea was that we build 1 and we hopefully like smash it.
Yep.
And then we build 2 and then we become a tiny home builder, but maybe not so much going down the custom route as where we're building for people, but where we're building them beautifully ready to go and people could just buy them. You know what I'm saying? So, because we looked around and realized there's like a 6 to 9 month waiting period for a lot of these companies. So we just want to start pumping them out to a design standard that we think is going to be really different from the competition. Like nothing against what people are doing, but we feel like when we look around at what's being built, we think men have designed them.
Yeah. Like, so we want to totally bring that female perspective and interior to the tiny home.
And a bit of luxury. Yeah. And I don't mean like luxury, like, you know, gold chandeliers, but like there's not a lot of attention to detail. There's a lot of attention being paid to utility. Like, oh, look, the stairs slide out and then this expands. You lift up this hatch and you can store your surfboard and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, we're ordering like beautiful like knobs from Etsy for the kitchen, and nobody's doing that. And we're going to put some wallpaper in the bathroom, and we're like thinking, how can we make the kitchen bench something nicer than just timber? Like everybody does timber, and people go, oh, well, that's what you do. But I don't think like that. I think like, let's do this let's turn it all on its head and do it differently and make it really fresh. So of course I'm totally digressing here, but it does go into like, yeah. So we might end up as like tiny home builders with a company, but the reality is it may not be profitable, and we're prepared for that. Yeah. And so we may go down the path of building a community to do this on a philanthropic level, like where we build these for women escaping domestic violence, and Bryh is a domestic violence survivor.
Yeah.
For like homeless people or people, we live right near the floods, and we volunteered to clean up after the floods. And like, there are so many people without homes. And I'm like, we just see that this solves a number of problems. And even if we are like kick-ass multi-million-dollar multinational tiny home builders, there's no way we're doing that without a philanthropic arm to it. We just couldn't. We just feel like this is going to solve problems for people who are really in need, and we want to be part of that solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Imagine like, having going into like a recovery house for a minute, and it's a beautiful little tiny home. It's not some rundown motel apartment that when you're at the bottom of life and you've got nowhere to live, and sometimes you end up in shady little hotels. Like, how amazing would it be if you had this beautiful little tiny home to go into when you're trying to heal because you've lost your home, you've been kicked out, whatever's happened to you. So I sort of see that, because when you're not in a good space and you're either homeless or you've got these stresses, like for me this is kind of what led my curiosity into interior design. It was just so important for me to be in a beautiful space, because I also suffer from agoraphobia. So, there was a period of time there where I didn't leave my house or my room. And, when you're in a crappy space, you just kind of look around and it kind of pushes you deeper down into the darkness. So if we were to do this on some kind of, I can't say that word, philanthropic level, to me, I'm just like, you're picking people up from the dirt. So how beautiful to pick them up and just put them into a little respite house if you can.
Yeah, but that isn't just like, what do you call it? I'm American, a donger.
It's a donger. Yeah, it's not a donger.
Like, it doesn't feel like some crappy low income, like, these were used at a mining camp for 2 years. Here, go in here. Like, we don't need to just give people shelter. We need to give them dignity.
Yeah, and because that's the thing, people don't realize that when you're homeless, like, it doesn't change who you are as a person, but there's a lot of shame that comes with it. And there's also a lot of judgment. People don't know your story and they just see you as being homeless. And then, a lot of society thinks homeless is the lowest part of society, but they actually don't know what perch that person's fallen off. I fell off a pretty high perch when I ended up being homeless. I had a good career. I was a youth social worker, and, it was all happening. And then suddenly you fall off, and within seconds your whole life has changed, and then you do have that extra bit to get through of moving through the shame and the judgment and just the way people see you. So we want to create something beautiful for those people and pick them back up again.
Oh, I love it. And what I'm hearing as both of you are sharing, it's like a holistic multi-purposes in this project for you guys. It's not just about building a house for someone. There's so much humanity here, and helping people with that have been through these different experiences. And I think that is such a beautiful offering. And you did also mention that maybe it becomes a business and maybe it doesn't, but I would dare say that whatever this journey brings, there's going to be so many learning experiences and joys and challenges and connecting with different people. And so that's really great. And I think you also mentioned as well, Cris, about building from a woman's perspective. And I know that I've seen you talk about the term lady tradies, and that you're wanting to work with as many women as possible during this project. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so Bryh and I don't really have any building skills, and we just thought after spending like, in the last 25 years, basically in meetings or in front of a computer or at a showroom, I was like craving doing something with my hands. And like, I don't know that I would be up for that for the next 20 years, but Bryh, who has fibromyalgia and is in a lot of pain, and she's like, I want to stretch myself. I want to see what my body can do. So we decided that we were going to build as much of this tiny home as possible. We have a wonderful builder who agreed to take us on.
Yep.
We have just finished our first 2 days on site. And man, I burnt myself, bruised myself. Bry's like, you have bruises all over your legs. Had blood. We had our first like injury. And Bryh goes home and she it's like a truck's run over her. And yet we could not be happier. And the response that we're getting from the men,
it's great,
is amazing.
Yeah,
amazing. Like they're so stoked to work with us. They're encouraging. Like we've had companies like Trade Tools and Racine and be like, we need more people like you. We love what you're doing and offering to help. And somebody drove by, is like, oh, I could, take my forklift and help you get your roof on if you want. Like, honestly, I give guys credit. They're not looking for a date with us. You know what I mean?
But they are like very helpful. But we also want to reach out to female trades. So because we really we're not all about women, but it's a space where we want to encourage it. And then just by being on Instagram and, I guess following the hashtag of Lady Tradies, there's some epic women out there doing some awesome stuff. So we've got a female electrician that we've found to get on board.
It was like finding a needle in a haystack. That was hard, to find female tradies.
We can find a lot in Melbourne and stuff, but we were really struggling with it to find female tradies up here on the Gold Coast.
And what did we learn this morning? Our builder Mick, who's like full old school builder,
he still wears his volleys.
Yeah. He's got 2 teen daughters, and we're like, oh, do they want to come help? And he went and talked to them. He's like, they do. And my one daughter, she's amazing at tiling. And we're so excited to have them come by. They're excited. Yeah. And we're feeling a lot of excitement and love from other female tradies out there in the social media universe. It's pretty cool. There's like a real positive vibe. And we're getting a lot of really cool feedback from the men too. Yeah. And not in a just in a we're champions. I think they think it's cool. It's just kind of that simple. They're kind of amused.
They are very amused. We get lots of head shakes from our lead builder.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are moments that he may use words to his normal employees, but he just shakes his head at us.
Yeah.
And there's lots of fun. We have lots of fun on site.
We have so much fun. We literally don't stop laughing. And then we fall into a heap at the end of the day.
I can totally imagine that, just watching you guys online. I can see how much fun you're having. And even just talking to you now, it's infectious. And I think it's really inspiring what you're doing too, because and just speaking from my own experience as a woman, and, I'm going to be having my tiny house built later in the year, but I've had this limitation of I would love to learn all these different skills and carpentry and cabinet making and stuff like that. But there is this limitation as well. And seeing what people like you, and then I've seen a few other women build their tiny home or, get a bunch of friends together and do it. And so it's just, I think it's really inspiring, and I suppose pave the way for others to maybe think about, well, maybe I can do it, maybe
you can.
Yeah, totally.
In case you can't tell from our voices, I'm 50 years old. Bry's 41 years old. We don't have any skills. We walked into Trade Tools and we're like, I did not know what anything even was. We had a little list.
Yep.
We watch a bit of YouTube. We do some research online. We ask questions. We ask for help. We don't pretend we know something we don't, but it's not rocket science. We're not trying to become brain surgeons. There's nothing that we can't learn to do. And if it's beyond our capabilities, we pay someone to do it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of gratification in it. This morning, I've just been drilling so many holes. drilling so many
There's
screws.
a lot of drilling.
There's so much drilling. I tell you what, the back of my neck and my arms are like, oh, but there's just so much gratification in it. Like after an hour of screwing, I'm like, yes, I've mastered the screw. I'm in the like screw like flow, and I'm like, yeah. And then I get cocky, and then I like snap a screw, like I snap the whatever the drill bit. Mick just shakes his head. I'm like, well, that's number 2 for this morning. And then, I challenge myself to go, right, no more braking, and then get back into the flow. So, yeah, just something as simple as drilling, I find so much gratification in it because I'm actually doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're learning a new skill, and it's going to go into something that, you really care about and that's meaningful for you too. So I love that. And I'm curious as well. So just like this whole process that you've both been going through, from idea to research to the design process and now starting the build, what has that been like? And are there, any challenges that you come up during that process?
Well, I think that I'm going to take a step back and kind of comment also on what Bryh just said, which is that I've had a lot of business ideas. I've been quite entrepreneurial in my life, and some have succeeded and some have failed, but generally like I'm focused on the goal, the outcome, right? Whereas with this, I have focused on and genuinely enjoyed the journey, the process. Like I am excited to build this tiny home. Like, yes, I want to make money at the end, right? I am looking forward to making mistakes. Like we do not go more than 2 or 3 hours without making a mistake. We put a wall in upside down. 2 or 3 hours. Are you like
maybe an hour,
20 to 30 minutes, like, so, oh my gosh, my tiny home trailer is 2.4 wide. All of my frames are for a tiny home that's 2.45 wide. So like, there was some extra welding. There was some, like, we solved it. Like, I would say anybody who's thinking of doing this themselves or even doing part of it themselves, get ready to make mistakes. Get ready to pull those screws back out. Get ready to scratch your head and be like, well, we've got a problem. And then like just start solving it. And I guess we've gone into this with such an attitude of like humor. And like, I wonder what the next problem is going to be. I wonder where we're going to lose money. Like, I wonder what, like, and I'm constantly like that mistake when other people would come on site and they'd be like, oh, why are you doing this? And Mick would very respectfully say like, oh, well, the framers didn't make it this, whatever. I'd be like, because I screwed up, because I didn't tell the trailer guy and the frame people the same dimension. And I'm like, it's so empowering to own your mistakes and have a bit of a laugh at yourself or anybody else that makes a mistake. So when I started, what I tried to do, which I have done with past businesses, and I would encourage anybody to think like this, is I am very goal oriented, but I can put blinders on and be like, I'm going to make this happen come hell or high water. And you don't see the warning signs. You don't see the stop signs. It'd be like, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea. So as I went from like, oh, let's just do some research. Let's call some tiny home companies. Let's go to the tiny home show. Let's draw up a floor plan. Let's talk to a builder. Yeah. At every point, I was willing to abandon this. At any point, I would be like, you know what? This doesn't stack up. This doesn't make sense. And everybody I talked to, it was incredible. Honestly, it was incredible how many people would be like, oh my God, you guys are going to kill it. Not like that.
So much support, encouragement.
And not the kind like your mom or your dad goes, oh, that's nice, honey. That sounds really great. You're so talented. You know what I mean? Like you would expect that. It's like people we barely knew were being like, that is rad. That is the best idea I've heard in a long time. Like it was such an overwhelming series of green lights that now we are like, we're in.
We're committed.
And how was it like a week ago? I really hit a moment of sheer terror. Oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? I've risked my entire life savings. I've borrowed money. I'm dragging Bryzy here with fibromyalgia and PTSD way out of her comfort zone. I'm risking a lot on this dream. What the F was I thinking? You know? And then
in comes the humor.
Because
if we don't have the humor, we can't do it.
I just feel the fear. Like that's bravery, right? Being afraid and doing it anyway. I was like, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah. And then, and then the more I got into the rabbit hole of researching and looking at tiny homes, the more I just fell in love with the idea and the whole tiny home. And currently, like, my wardrobe wouldn't even fit in the tiny home that we're building. So even just with the mindset for in the future to really like downsize and go minimal and, what do we need all this stuff for? It's just stuff. So just the thought of, once the kids move out and then really start to just get everything minimal, I feel like I would be so happy in a tiny home.
Yeah, tiny home is synonymous with freedom.
Freedom, simplicity, and as you said just then, Bryh, too, just reassessing how much do we actually need and how much space do we need. So yeah, definitely. And you mentioned the trailer before as well, Cris. So where did you get your trailer from? And what kind of trailer is it?
I'm probably not going to use the correct technical terms, so just bear with me.
That's so fine.
It's 2.4 by 7.2. It's got 6 wheels, galvanized, and I basically just everything we've done has been through Google. Like I Googled tiny home trailer and I emailed people everywhere from Sunshine Coast to Melbourne, because I thought if I get a good price, I can afford to bring it up here. And I found this great guy, Matthew you can put it in the show notes or whatever. It's HMJ Trailers. And whereas like most people would charge between 10 and 12 for that, Matthew was doing it for 8 for us. Yeah, and then we did our walls in light gauge steel framing, and that was done by Brett's Modular, I think they're called.
I think they're Brett's Modular.
I think I've heard of them.
So, and that was really fun. So this was a big challenge. I was so confused about how to get this done. And they actually sent this amazing guy, Paul, over. He came to my house, opened up a laptop, looked at my floor plans, and had an engineering program where he basically just designed it in front of me in 3D, and it calculated everything that needed to be calculated. And then I said, yep, that looks like it, and he's like, oh, your window can't be that big. And I'm like, okay. And I really pushed back, and he was, and I would tell anybody that this is what they will most likely experience is being an interior designer happens all the time. You'll get a, no, that's not how you do it, or we don't do it that way. And then you go, okay, I hear you. Why? What can we do? The reason I want this is because this is the aesthetic I'm trying to achieve. And they're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Oh, well, man, we can put an extra post here. Oh, hold on. And then they get all excited because then they're solving a problem for you. So when you get a no, respectfully push, ask for them to help you solve that problem. And then a no turns into a yes. And we have a tiny home design that is not going to look like all the other tiny home designs out there. Like there's no freaking way I was just going to be a copycat. What's the point?
Yeah.
So, to continue. So he literally, over the course of an hour, like that little engineering program, basically designed up all our walls, and then they made them. The trailer got delivered to the Brett's, who was making the frames, and they just stacked all the frames like a Lego set, flat packed onto the trailer and delivered it to us. And we're now building it. They're so kind of fascinated with us that Paul has actually stopped by a couple times to see what we're up to.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's coming back today.
Yeah.
Because we did discover at the end of the day yesterday that we had put one of the walls in upside down. So, and by this stage, Mick, our builder, had left. And then I messaged him when I got home and was like, oh, yeah, by the way, one of our walls is upside down, but no biggie. And he rang me straight away and he's like, did you really just say no biggie? I'm like, it's no biggie, man. Like, and he's like, I'm not going to sleep tonight. And I'm like, well, I am.
We were talking about this morning, is that I think that this is not man bashing, but there is a culture that we're discovering. I know from being an interior designer that on work sites can be really negative. Like there's like, you make a mistake, you get yelled at, or it's like things don't go right and like you've had a bad day. Whereas like we expect things to not go perfectly. We laugh. Yeah. And our work site, I'm proud to say, is so fun and positive and happy. And everyone who's kind of coming around is like having a good time. Like the welder pushed another job to come back today. We had a good laugh, a good talk about he's from Israel. And like, it's incredible. And we're like, I know this is super woo-woo, but we're like, why does a work site have to be this sort of toxic, yelling, bad day, go home in a bad mood, negative? Like, unless it's like the sun is shining and everything goes perfect, it's not good. We think every day is good. Yeah. And that's how we're approaching our work site. We're a bit of a revelation to everyone who's meeting us and coming by so far.
Yeah, they're like, wow, this work site's different.
Yeah.
Do you know what, though? Just like listening to both of you, I can really feel this. Not everyone is going to go out and do something like this. Like, people have ideas and, oh, I'd love to do this, and they watch other people and they, you know, all of that. And there's something to be said about, feels like this drive and this go-get attitude, and then this laughing at yourselves and, you know, making things lighter and just more enjoyable. And it's not every day that, you know, people will jump into such a massive project like this, but your attitudes are really inspiring around just how you operate. And maybe every construction site needs a Cris and a Bryh there or something, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess it's like, think about it. Like, if somebody's, you know, listening to this and they're not doing a tiny house on wheels, they're like just building a little extension or whatever. Like, even if you're not doing the building, if you're just running, that you're just hiring the subbies or whatever, like, set the tone for fun, expect mistakes. Geez, we could all get hit by a bus tomorrow. If I got hit by a bus tomorrow, I'd be like, well, you know what? The day before is pretty freaking fun.
Yeah. Cris was up on the scaffold today and I was just holding the camera because I'm like, oh, if she falls, that's good footage.
Yeah.
But she didn't fall.
Yeah, I was holding a rope with all my might, like pulling this beam, and then like a really good song came on. So I thought that was an opportunity to just dance a little bit, you know? Why not?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I feel like I just want to come to the site that you're building your home.
Come hang out.
You know?
Might set up a DJ soon too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. Well, actually, speaking of that, so whereabouts is your house being built? Like, have you had to hire somewhere? Is it on a piece of land somewhere, or where is it being built?
Of all places, it's a boatyard in Chindra on the Tweed River, which is about 15 minutes south of us. We live in Tweed Heads, right on the Coolangatta border. So this is really close, less than 15 minutes. And there's just boats there. And our friend, the same one who suggested we build a tiny house, said, oh, I've seen a tiny house. So we called up the guy, Chris. He's like, sure, you can build your tiny house here. And it's, we're just paying $80 a week, which we think is pretty reasonable considering what commercial rent would be if we were to do that. And then once it's at lockup stage, we're going to see, we're hoping we can bring it to my house so that we can just putter around and like pop out on a Saturday if we feel like painting or putting a few architraves up or et cetera. But for this big build where we've got scaffolding and stuff like that, we're literally doing it and we're just surrounded by people's boats.
And there's like a work shed down the back where I'm not sure what the guys are doing. I guess they're working on boats. Yeah. And they come and check in on us, see if we need anything.
The tech people are so nice. We're like a novelty. We're like a sideshow.
Yeah, so fun. I love it. And I'm curious to know as well, so just some of the features that you're going to be having in the home. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, okay, let's start from the outside. I wanted the house to feel like a small traditional house. I am not a huge fan of some of the weird things that people do with their cladding and the weird shapes and cuts on things. You wouldn't do that to a house. So I've approached the design of this. It's like, if I wouldn't do it to a house, I wouldn't do it to a tiny home. I don't want it to feel like a weird caravan. I want it to feel like a beautiful house in miniature. So everything from like the weatherboard cladding to, architraves. And I've put in as many windows and doors as Paul, the framing guy, would let me. So tons of glass and light. There's a big skylight. We decided to go with a loft for the master bedroom. And I did a lot of research and I think most people aren't having a whole family in them unless they're doing significantly bigger tiny homes. So And I didn't want just a couple chairs. I'm like, we need a nice sofa, a nice place to lounge and watch TV or read. So what we've done is at the opposite side of the loft bedroom, which floats over the kitchen or over the bathroom, is we've basically created like a day bed area with a little pop out window. So it's going to be the size of a single bed, but it's going to have like an upholstered mattress with beautiful accent cushions all around it. So it's like a really generous, you could throw 3 people on there if you're using it as a sofa, or throw the accent cushions on the ground, throw a sheet over it, and it's an extra single bed if you've got somebody visiting you, or if somebody was renting it out for Airbnb, they've got the quote unquote master. And then they've also can throw their kid down on that little single bed. So we kind of did double duty there. We are really just doing those touches that we have yet to be seen. We're going to do kind of an art gallery wall as you're going up the stairs. We're going to do like a cool little jute runner going down the stairs, a Killam rug. We're doing kitchen counters will look like, they won't be solid marble, but we found a product that will look like marble. We've done like copper sinks and taps. And in the bathroom, for example, we have bought like a really cute vintage chest of drawers, which we're going to paint and put funky marble handles on. So that's going to be the vanity. We're going to do some wallpaper. We're actually going to, nobody seems to use any tile. We know that because there's weight, but we're going to actually tile the floor in this gorgeous marble mosaic. We're going to do like a beautiful, probably semi-frameless shower screen. So it's not going to have that, what I feel like is a very white, plasticky afterthought, no color, nothing. We're going to have like a funky mirror. I don't know what, maybe like a gold sunburst mirror, like a Mexican mirror or something. Bathrooms are a refuge.
Yeah.
I love my bathroom.
Yeah. Bathrooms are as important as a bedroom.
For sure.
Yeah.
The smaller it is, the more we need to do to make it like a little jewel.
Yeah. Where you just don't even want to leave. You just want to hang out in your bathroom.
Yeah. We've got a full-size shower, 900 by 900. Here's another thing. We're putting the washing machine in the bathroom. Why does nobody hide it? They just like stick it in there. I'm going to get a custom little bifold door so it's hidden so you don't see it. I'm so tired of people talking utility. And I'm like, aesthetics.
This is a 25-year interior designer coming out.
Right? Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm getting my interior design like lying on.
Yeah, and she's spent 25 years having other people tell you what they want. So she's like, woo, yeah, I get to have whatever I want.
Yeah, I'm going to put some crazy ass wallpaper up. And if you don't like it, you don't have to buy it.
So good. I mean, you get, to be able to express yourself fully and that's great. And it sounds like a lot of character in the home too. So I can't wait to see how it unfolds. And what size is the home going to be?
2.5 by 7.2 by full height. So it's 3.5 up from, we've done the flat deck trailer, which I hemmed and hawed because the ones that, I don't know what they call them, but they bump up over the wheels. Like, yes, they're closer to the ground, but that little bump up just doesn't look nice. So we also want to design, we want to get a friend who's an engineer to help us. We want to design like a really cool modular decking system that really hides all that and flows into the landscape so that it doesn't just feel like this thing sitting in the middle of nowhere. We want it to feel like it hugs the earth and gets integrated with the landscape, but then something that people can then just quickly pull apart, throw in the back of the truck that's towing the tiny home. And what's that expression? Bob's your uncle.
Bob's your uncle. Move on.
Yeah.
Find a new space to be.
So you mentioned before as well, I think it was you, Cris, you were saying you've had times where you've questioned, like, what am I doing? What have I got myself into and all of that? And I'm wondering for both of you, have there been any other internal obstacles that you've come up against and, how you've moved through them or anything like that?
We just had a little session about a week ago that was really cool that I got off of the happiness lab. It's called WOOP, which is Wish Outcome Obstacle Plan. And it's basically because I've often made the mistake, to be honest, of being overly positive, like think positive, just go get it, like live your best life, blah, blah, blah. But then you just don't plan for the worst outcome. And those people don't actually succeed. Basically, optimists and pessimists don't succeed as much as realists who engage in something called contrast thinking, which is that we wanted to be crystal clear about our outcome and our wish and all that positive stuff. And then imagine everything could go wrong. So for me, the biggest thing that I feel could go wrong is money. I have such a tight budget. I have very little room for movement, maybe 2,000. And the fact is, I'm done my best to research this budget, but I quite easily could get something wrong, which means that the whole build could grind to a halt. I could, spend 6 to 9 months of my life and then not make a single penny. I might have to borrow more money from the bank. And what if they say no? Then I'm going to have to go to friends and family. And that's really stressful. Money is stressful. I'm quite sure people can feel that. So for me, the biggest obstacle was getting enough money, and will continue to be keeping enough money. And then I think that with Bryh, her obstacles are more internal, but I'll let her.
Yeah, so my obstacles are more the commitment to actually building, and just with my body, I often have where I have a fibro flare, which means I can be in bed for days because my body's just out of control in pain. So for me, it's kind of because I'm committed to the process and the journey, I don't want to let anybody down by not turning up or not being able to work. I also before I met Cris, there was no way you were going to get me in front of a video camera, and there was absolutely no way I was going to be as public as I am on social media. I hate being in front of the camera. I have so much anxiety. So even just doing stuff like that for me is like a push to push through my comfort zone and to put myself out there to the world, for the world to see and maybe judge me. I don't know. So yeah, a lot of it's for me is about being exposed to the world and physically pushing through the actual build. I generally, I have maybe 5 good hours out of a day where I can be productive. And then I have to tap out, my brain melts down, my body melts down. So yesterday I was up working from 8 till 5, which that's a big day for me. I know that's just normal for other people. This morning I was there at 7:30 going hard. I said to Cris just before on the drive back here, I'm just to let you know, I'm hurting, I'm hurting hard, but I have to keep going. So I actually find it. So I was just kind of this morning, I was just cleaning up the site because I find if I stop, it's really hard for me to get my body to go again. So I just kind of have to keep going and pushing through it. So yeah, for me, the biggest challenge is to actually be there and to physically do the work.
And we might lose her for a week.
Yeah.
That was in our planning. We had to work that in, what if you crash and you can't do anything for it? Okay, well, let's just plan for that, and be okay with that.
Yeah. So at the moment I'm feeling good because I'm so out of my comfort zone. I'm in a world of pain, but the excitement and the adrenaline is really keeping me there. And it's I almost have this little bit of FOMO, I can't go to bed. I have to be here. So yeah, that's my big sort of internal push is my health, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that adds another layer of, I think, inspiration of you, even though you're having those challenges, still wanting to get up and go and, be a part of it. Yeah, that's amazing. And as close as both of you are, and you can really tell that, and I know that, spend a lot of time together and all of that. And I'm also wondering, just during this process of this tiny house journey for you, is there anything new that you've learned about each other?
No. And in fact, it's starting to get freaky. We think we're morphing into the same person. We could not be more different. I'm city girl, American, like go to art museums and
drinks kombucha and eats tofu.
Yeah. And she's a country girl, but she doesn't mind if I call her a bogan.
Yeah.
Total bogan. She says
I've got the inner bogan in me.
She says the wrong words for everything. Like half the time I'm like, translate, please. I don't know what you're saying. And yet we will like be texting each other the exact same thing at the same time. We'll show up wearing the same
clothes
outfit.
Always. Or like I'll say something and just as I've said it, Cris is like, oh my God, I was about to say that. Like,
or I've got it in my hand because we're like arriving at the same conclusion at the same time. So
yeah, if anything, we've just kind of become more in tune with each other.
Super intuitive.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so beautiful. And I can even just as like we're talking today, I can feel this kind of like flow of, when one of you speaks and then the other one picks up on the end, and it's like this beautiful dance. So yeah, I can really feel that. And I'm also curious as well, like for each of you, what's maybe one of the most valuable lessons that you've learned during this project?
The mind's a powerful thing. You set your mind to it. You just got to do it. Like, I don't know, like just jump some hurdles. There's always going to be hurdles.
I'm trying to think what I've learned that I didn't know before is how
swing a hammer.
Yes. No, what an impact driver is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love my impact driver.
That's so true because I didn't know the difference between like an impact driver and a drill. I thought they were the same thing, but you need to use both at the same time sometimes.
Yeah, but the airy-fairy answer to that question is I think I didn't realize how infectious our enthusiasm and positivity would be for everybody else. I'm so pleasantly surprised that we're not getting haters. We're getting lovers. You know what I mean? That people are jumping on board this crazy train that we're calling living big time.
Yeah.
What are we?
I don't even know.
we just named ourselves.
I think you renamed
Big Life, Tiny Home.
Big Life, Tiny Home.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love it. I actually watched your video of the different names that you were throwing around with your families or something.
That's why we can't remember it. It's only 2 weeks old.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great.
It's so important for us to be authentic and to be real. I guess, out in the social media world, there's a lot of polished stuff happening. You see the polished part of people's life. So we we just want to show, we don't want to just have all the highlight reels up. We do want to show the hard parts about it and put it out there. Like, I'm sure there's going to be coming up soon where Bryce is going to be in tears because she wants to push through, but she just can't. So, we just really want to be who we are and just, not sort of polish ourselves for the social media world.
Yeah, we're not doing the highlight reel. We're doing the behind the scenes nitty gritty, the real adventures of Bryh and Cris building a tiny home. Yeah,
we are who we are. You get what you get.
And, I think that's probably a big reason why people are so drawn to you. You're saying it feels like you're like brightening up people's days and, different workers are wanting to come back to help you on the side and all of that. And I think that's great. And you can definitely feel that authenticity through your videos online too. And I think that's such a refreshing thing these days because as you said, Bryh, that, often it's the highlight reels that you see and people can feel and connect to that authenticity and that being real and showing up as you rather than a filtered down version or something. So that's great. And as we start to wrap up the conversation, is there anything that you'd like to maybe leave the listeners with in terms of maybe someone's thinking about wanting to start their journey to build a tiny house, but maybe they're held back a little bit or they don't know where to start? Is there any final words you want to leave with them?
I think just ask a lot of questions. This entire journey started with me not thinking I needed to know exactly where I was going. So, go to a tiny home show, reach out to tiny home builders, look on Pinterest, listen to this podcast. You know what I mean? Like, which is marinate yourself in what's out there, and then the path will appear ahead of you. Then you'll start to, it's like casting a really wide net, and then you'll distill it down to where you want to go with it.
Yeah, beautiful. And we have an inbox. So if anyone wants to reach out to us,
love it.
We would love it. We're so welcome to chat to us if they've got some blockages. We're two chicks that don't know what we're doing, but we're going to do it anyway. So if we can give some people some confidence, inspiration to do it, then awesome.
Yeah. We want to be part of the community.
Yeah, we're going to just get ourselves right in there.
Watch out, tiny home community. We're coming.
So good. So good. And what, where's the best people, let me say that again. Where's the best place people can find you online?
biglife.tinyhome on Instagram would be, or we're on Facebook as well. We actually haven't changed our name on Facebook yet. We're still our interior design name, but we will. So we're biglife.tinyhome.
And then we're building a YouTube channel. So watch this space.
Oh, great. Well, I will put everything in the show notes. And actually, I'll just ask you one last question. Is there anything else that you feel like we haven't touched on when it comes to this project that you just wanted to share with everyone, or and what's coming up?
What's coming up? Probably lots of giggles. Hopefully no more walls go up backwards.
Oh, and hopefully only minor injuries.
Yeah.
Minor injuries, mistakes, humor, and the most beautiful tiny home in Australia. I'm just going to put it out there.
That's what's coming
Throwing down the gauntlet.
Love it. So stay tuned on your Instagram page for footage of all of that. I'm guessing.
We're gonna. Yeah,
and then a longer format YouTube channel to come.
Okay, perfect. Do you know if you're going to be calling it the same name then? I think
yes.
Big Life Tiny House. Okay, cool. Well, I'll put some information about that in the show notes, and then people can come and check you out there. Cris and Bryh, I wanted to say thank you so much for your time today. You guys are so much fun, and I can really feel this love between you and this playful humor, and that so many things. I mean, I've already said it before on the show today, but thank you so much for sharing your story and your experiences, and I can't wait to watch your journey unfold as it happens. And thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and we're so stoked with what you're doing and to be part of it.
Yeah, your podcast was actually when I was in my tiny home rabbit hole. It was the first podcast that I come across and actually started to listen to in the world of tiny homes. So thank you for bringing that to me.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. Getting to connect with people like you is one of probably my favorite part of this. So it's my absolute pleasure. And just like both of you have said, wanting to be part of the tiny house community and giving back and all of that, it's definitely part of my intention too. So thank you. And it's great to be a part of the community and the journey with you. So, and if you're listening to this episode at home, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here with us. If you want more tiny house conversations, stay tuned every Thursday for new episodes, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again for listening. And if you enjoyed the conversation today, you found it valuable, and you want to support the podcast, the best way you can do that is to share the love. That way I can keep bringing you more tiny house conversations to help you on your own tiny journey. So here are 3 ways that you can support the podcast. Number 1, if you have a friend or family member that you feel would benefit from hearing these conversations, feel free to share it with them, email them, text them, send them a telegram, do whatever you need to do to share it with them. Number 2, if you hit the subscribe button, you'll know exactly when the next episode is live. And number 3, if you head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to podcasts and leave a 5-star rating and review. Thank you so much in advance. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next episode.